Hello. I'm going to share 5 tips to help a struggling reader at home. And yes, you read that right. I put the most important first, but they're all really important. Okay, so book choices first. All right, this is important. Kids must want to read what they're being asked to read, or they will not be motivated to read it. If you've heard my video on motivation, you know what I'm talking about. So when you're at the library, or if you're ordering books from a book fair, or a book order, whatever it is, wherever you are, when you're picking out books with your child, you need to let them have a choice and a say in what's being picked out. So obviously, if you're not comfortable with that topic, with your child reading that topic, or you're not comfortable with that particular book for whatever reason, there's no need for you to just go along with whatever they want, but they need to have some say in what they're reading. Okay. The next one's important. Kids must feel that they can read the text without very many mistakes. If they think that a book is too hard, or if it really is too hard, it can become a huge frustration for them. So there are many different views out there on maybe how to just determine if a book's too hard. Of course, you can think about their independent reading level. There's lots of different systems out there. And there's lots of different books in the education world that will describe different ways to determine this. The simplest way, I think, is just to have them read part of the book, maybe a page or a little paragraph, and see if they can understand what that part of the book is trying to tell them, to teach them, or to help them understand. If they are making so many mistakes that they can't read it smoothly, or if there are so many words they don't understand or don't know that they can't comprehend what they're reading, then it's probably too hard for them. Okay, so just the key points here are: let them have choice in what they read, and be sure it isn't too hard. And so just remember, a book is too hard if they make so many mistakes that they cannot understand what the story is telling them or what the text is teaching them. And of course, if they become visibly frustrated, it's too hard. And kids are pretty good at that. They'll, especially struggling readers, they'll let you know if the book's too hard, and they'll probably try to pick something that's a little easier. However, I will say that when kids do find a book they really want to read, even if it's a little bit too hard for them, they're usually willing to give it a try, especially if there's an adult there to help them read it, if it's something they really, really want to read. So those are really important, both of those, to think about when you're talking about book choice. Okay, number 2 seems like a no-brainer. Stay positive, but it's really hard when you and your child both become frustrated. And trust me, I know that feeling. So one suggestion that I often come across is to just take a break. Really important, both for you and your child. Okay. So a lot of times we have a 20-minute reading requirement that we need to meet for school, right? We get those things saying you need to read for 20 minutes every night. Okay. But if that really isn't doable, that's okay. I'm going to tell you why. Okay. If you only get 10 minutes of reading in, it's better than nothing. Okay. Eventually, you will probably build up to that 20 minutes as your child becomes more skilled in reading. But if reading time becomes a battlefield, your child is going to lose motivation and resist reading even more. So if you need to take a break and end on a positive note, just do that. Okay, just of course work up to that 20 minutes. There's that 20 minutes of reading is research based. There's a lot of research around reading for 20 minutes every night. But it would be better to end on a positive note than to force 20 minutes and end on a negative note. Okay. So another important suggestion here about being positive is just to find specific positive things to give feedback on. So teachers, we've heard about this a lot. This is really important to teaching, and it really is important to everyone to give people specific feedback. So instead of just saying, oh, good job on your reading, or good job, you're doing good, we need to get specific. So here are some examples. You did a great job sounding out the word you didn't know. That was great when you reread that sentence you struggled with. You didn't give up until it made sense. It was fun when you used an angry voice when the troll was talking. It made it seem so real. And here's the best comment of all. I am proud of you for all of your hard work. Okay, that last one's important because the words I am proud of you are going to build this great connection between you and your child. Your child's um, going to understand that they can influence you in a positive way by giving you that feeling of pride. So that's really great for them. And then the other words there of hard work. So you're connecting not success for them, not this belief that they're smart or they're good, but that they're hardworking. And there's a whole bunch of research, brain research around this belief that hard work and effort will pay off. So we want them to have that connection. Another great way that you can use feedback is to actually have your child give themselves some feedback so they can self-reflect on their reading. So you might ask them, what what do you think you did well when you were reading tonight? Or you could say, how do you feel about your reading? What do you think you're getting better at? And just keep it positive though. Keep them focused on the positive. Okay, number 3 has kind of 2 parts to it. So share the reading and don't be afraid to help. So sharing reading, nothing really new there. I usually just take turns with a student. I'll read a page, then they read a page. I like to let them choose who reads first, and then every time we turn the page, they get to choose which page they're going to read and which page I will read. They usually choose the page that they think looks the easiest, but that's okay because sometimes it's not. And that's all right. The next one is really important. Don't be afraid to help. Okay. So for many years, I've heard parents, very well-meaning parents, I will say, have told me that they don't help their kids read a word because they want them to read on their own or sound out the words themselves, even when their child asks for help with the word. So they don't believe that their child will improve in reading if the parent is allowed to help them. Okay, this is actually far from the truth. And any educator with their salt is going to tell you the exact opposite. Okay, they're not going to get better by struggling and struggling and struggling. Okay, here's an important thing I want you to hear. Children need to feel successful more than they need to master every word in their book. I'm going to say that again. Children need to feel successful more than they need to master every word in their book. Okay, that's really important. We're not going for perfection here. That would be crazy. Okay, no one's perfect, especially not children, and we don't want them to have that weight on them. So we're not going for perfection here. We're not going for every word 100% read correctly. Okay, they're learning, they're struggling, so we need to help them through that time. Okay, adults, we are the training wheels on a bike for them. Okay, we're like those training wheels. We're not going to be there forever, but we need to be there until the child feels confident in their own reading ability. Okay, so we might be there for a while, and that's okay. Okay, we're not going to ruin anyone by helping them. I'm going to share a little next bit here that might help you, okay? So, what does that look like? That's what a lot of parents ask. So you're going to help your child with the words they don't know, okay? Here's what I say. Let them try. Go ahead and let them try that word, but don't let them struggle for too long. So about 3 to 5 seconds is plenty of time. That's kind of the window I use. So I'll use some examples. My son is a pretty strong reader. So when he comes to a word he doesn't know, I usually give him a little more time. I listen to see if he's, and I watch his lips too, actually, to see if he's getting the first sounds correctly. If he's getting some of those sounds correctly, I'll let it go. He's actually at the point now where he maybe pronounces the word wrong. He'll keep reading to the end of the sentence, and he will realize, oh, that word didn't make sense, and then he'll go back and read it again and correct himself. And of course, if he doesn't, then I'll help him. But that's an example of, as children progress in their reading, it's a little bit longer time to help them. My daughter, who's a beginning reader, struggles obviously more at this point. And so tonight when she was reading a book, she had the word sat, S-A-T, sat, and she would say is for it. So once I realized what was going on, when we come to that word, I'd only give her about 1 second, And if she didn't start making the S sound, I was making it for her. So that's just one of my favorite ways to help. So I gave her the first beginning sound. Um, then I might need to give her the next sound. And hopefully then she's blending and reading the rest of that word sat. Um, but by the end of the book, when we got to the word sat, it kept being repeated. And by the end, when we get there, I could just start with the sound and then she would finish the rest of the word. So it can look different depending on your children, depending on what their comfort level is. But that's just a great way to do it. So 3 seconds. If they're on the right track, maybe let it go a little longer. If they're um, coming up with the wrong word, like my daughter is, you might jump in a little sooner. Here's a word of caution, though. Okay, many of the words in the English language don't sound out. So if you noticed your child struggling with a word like of or through or was, please just give your child the word and let them keep going. Okay. Also, many sight words involve what I call advanced spelling patterns that many of our young children haven't even been taught yet, let alone mastered. So, saw is a word I'll use as an example. Um, if you know that AW makes the aw sound like an awesome and awful, you could decode that word, but that means sound out. You could sound out that word. But if you don't know that AW spelling, and some of you maybe don't, I didn't know that till I was older. Um, you might be trying to sound it out, but it doesn't really sound out, or it might not be decodable for your child. So, especially, they probably haven't learned that. So, just keep that in mind. Some words don't sound out, and you're just going to have to help your child memorize them. Oftentimes, sight words are often non-decodable, or that means they can't sound out. Okay, the next one, you've probably figured this out, but you can get sneaky. Sometimes we need to do that as parents. So here's some of my favorite reading tricks. So instead of saying, you made a mistake, you need to read that again. And you could kind of hear that kind of angry voice. Try not to use an angry voice. I like to say something like, I'm sorry, I think I didn't hear that right. Can you read that to me again? Okay, that's good one because it teaches kids to pay attention to the meaning while they read, which is a critical skill for reading comprehension. So when I talked about my son who he might mispronounce a word, but he'll read all the way to the end of the sentence. If he doesn't catch that word didn't make sense, that's when I use that. Oh, just read that for me again. I didn't understand that. And then usually he gets it. Just don't overuse this. Sometimes I'll use that like, oh, I didn't hear that. What'd you say? But just don't use it too much or they'll catch on. When I'm sharing the reading, sometimes I'll just miss a word or skip a line on purpose to see if they're following along with me. You've probably done things like that as a parent. That's kind of an old trick. And then the last one there that's really important is just let some mistakes go. Yeah, you heard me. Let some go, especially if your child is anxious about making mistakes. Okay, let the little mistakes go if they don't change the meaning all that much. So a lot of times we'll have readers that will change the word a for the, they'll switch it. Sometimes readers will leave off endings, especially like verb tense endings. You can let those go sometimes, especially if it's not changing the meaning, if they're still understanding. Now, if they're making a lot of mistakes, then you probably picked a book that was too hard. But just let some of those little ones go if you can. Okay, last one is share your own struggles. If you've had struggles around reading, share those with your child and how you've overcome them. So if you struggled with reading yourself, just tell your child about it, focusing on how you improved. So think about these things. What did you do? How did you feel? Who helped you? Or how did you help yourself? What strategies do you use when reading a new word? Okay, so I always tell my students every year how I struggled with reading myself. I wasn't taught how to sound out words. I wasn't taught phonics. I had to memorize everything. And I actually couldn't tell you the sound, the short E sound in the word hen until I was a teacher myself. I couldn't isolate that sound individually. So it caused me to be really embarrassed as a student in college and especially as a young teacher when I didn't know how to pronounce new words that I was encountering in educational literature. So my point is the struggle is normal. Okay? We all struggle in different ways and we just need to be okay with that. And we need to let our kids know that. It's okay to struggle. It's not the end of the world. Okay? So just remember if you're sharing your story, just keep it positive. That's really important. Don't turn it into negative. Keep it positive. And make sure you give your story a happy ending. Just focus on the fact that your effort led to success. Again, a lot of research shows that that belief is really important to our students' resilience in overcoming adversity. So I hope these tips helped. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.